call to order this meeting of Raleigh City Council. Council Member Thompson is absent, excused. I have not heard from Council Member Crowder, but you think she is not coming. Okay, so she is absent, excused.
All right.
Mr. Manager.
Well, Mayor and Council, these are two remaining items associated with the comprehensive plan updates. Rather than a long introduction, perhaps we'll just go ahead and send it to our esteemed planning staff to walk us through some of those changes, receive your feedback, and then happy to receive whatever direction the council wishes. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Good afternoon. Ira Mabel from City Planning, not Bynum Walter, who is homesick today, unfortunately for her. So I don't have very many slides for you, mostly just a recap of where all the various pieces are or have been of the comprehensive plan update. So to date, 3 groupings of chapters have been adopted. That's A, B, and D. And then 1 sort of half adopted, so that's became F at the bottom there, 2 chapters of those 4. So we are here today to talk about the remaining 5 chapters, which are in letter C, economic development, housing, and then a section, not a full chapter, and then downtown and area specific guidance. So that's where everything else is. This amendment, CP2C19, containing these 3, was referred to growth and natural resources for various issues and reported out of that committee earlier, a few weeks ago, with a couple of recommendations to City Council. One was to adopt that subsection as it is and to add additional guidance to an existing project that City Planning is currently undertaking about public engagement, to specifically look at the questions raised by Mr. Stevenson about incorporating ideas from the APA policy guide. So we did present that we do think there is quite a bit of overlap between those 2, but definitely places where we can look towards incorporating ideas that were in the APA guide that are not in our plan. And one of our options was that the public engagement study was a good venue to do that. The second bullet is about a specific language for one policy about fair housing enforcement, and questioning the change proposed in the update. The Growth and Natural Resources Committee requested that the city attorney try to draft some new language, which their office says it's done. I can go to the next slide. And then finally, before I jump to that, Mr. Stevenson provided a list of other policies that that were proposed to be removed that would like to be reinstated. So those last 2 bullets, this language and then the other list of policies in the housing section, are included in the draft resolution that's in your packet. So whereas most other resolutions, draft resolutions for these updates, have just had basically the book as an attachment, there's an additional attachment that outlines all those things. But this was the language proposed by the city's attorney's office. I'll leave that up for a little bit for you to review. And I can come back to this or pause now if there are any particular questions.
Any questions?
Okay.
Okay.
The other piece, as I said before, 2 of the chapters were adopted. The remaining 2 are downtown and area specific guidance, which is where all the adopted area plans live. So this was not adopted at the time because there were some questions about both of those chapters. So staff has provided memos addressing those questions that were in the backup. So I won't spend too much time. But there was a question about why certain policies were removed. For the most part, they are redundant with code that did not exist in 2009 but does exist now. Or in the last example, something the city did not wish to pursue given the experience we've had with that policy. And then Ms. Crowder specifically had questions about the Arena Blue Ridge plan. That was a combination of multiple plans, so just a little bit more background she was asking for about where different policies came from. So we answered questions for her, I believe, about those things. So that's all the slides I have. I have other backup should we need it. But really here to answer any questions about the material that's outstanding that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Anyone have any outstanding questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So this is globally about an entire item A1?
Sure.
Okay.
I think,
Well,
yeah.
So, first of all, I appreciate the time that staff has put in looking at these comments I had on the housing policies.
Microphone.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Again, I appreciate the time that staff has put into looking and discussing with me these concerns about the housing policies and how they really have relevance going forward. So I appreciate that staff's recommendation is to reinstate them. But much more importantly is the idea of this public participation new section being part of a broad community conversation that's going to incorporate elements of equity and participation. And of course, as you mentioned, some of the equity and participation items do come from the APA document. I will just point to a few things, if I may, that I'm just going to quote out of this document that really speak to the larger question of equity. Of course, the APA is concerned on equity from a planner's perspective, but I would say it applies equally or more so from the elected's perspective. So, statement is, ethics is not a trivial matter. Instead, it is a core value that cannot be ignored. Applying principles of equity is an ethical responsibility. The goal of social justice is not met when underserved populations shoulder the weight of untenable living conditions and subsequently experience no material benefit after community improvements are implemented. Instead, social justice requires the examination of both the positive and negative impacts of community improvements on all community members so that all members benefit and no one or group or neighborhood is unfairly disadvantaged. I'll have to say that my experience over many years in the city of Raleigh is that we are not an equitable city and that we do have many ingrained disparities that we really need to work on, and the civic participation element of that is great, and I really appreciate that. But I'll just read one more brief fragment of a sentence, and that is the failure to acknowledge equity in planning policy actually institutionalizes inequity. And I think that's where the city of Raleigh has been for a long time. And I'm hoping that folks who are coming back on council will take this to heart and take this new policy document as a roadmap to really work hard on this strategic equity initiative that's in addition to the public participation parts here. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this section? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Of course,
second one?
he actually covered them.
I went through.
was that both of
I went
them?
through both. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if was the motion for both?
It was for the
No, just
it was
A1.
for the
Okay.
A1.
Right.
Okay, were there any questions or comments on A2? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve that?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
we
Yes.
have we have a motion is in order to enter closed session pursuant to GS 143, 318, 11A3 to consult with the city attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to give instructions concerning the handling and/or settlement of a potential claim in the following, all of which are pending in Wake County Superior Court. 1, City of Raleigh versus Johnson. 2, City of Raleigh versus Hargrove. 3, City of Raleigh versus Lavelle. 4, City of Raleigh versus Cozart. And 5, City of Raleigh versus Glover. And GS 143, 318, 11A6 to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move to closed session. the attorney regarding the matters of City of Raleigh versus Johnson, City of Raleigh versus Hargrove, City of Raleigh versus Lavelle, City of Raleigh versus Cozart, and City of Raleigh versus Glover. We also, completed the city attorney's evaluation and have given her a 5% raise. That's it.
Effective what, our anniversary date?
Yeah, effective of her anniversary.